So, as promised, Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is in studio. Thank you for coming back.
It's a pleasure, Aaron.
It's only been 11 years, I think, since you were last here.
That's not true.
Well,
That's not true.
You were running for mayor.
Yeah, but we've talked to each other since then many times.
I haven't seen you since then. It's the first time you're actually physically back here, I think.
Oh,
right?
That's maybe over the phone. And also during the pandemic, that was more complicated.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, wow. Not much to talk about, huh?
So many things happening in the world.
So let's start with the big news today internationally, and that is the fact that the Yahya Sinwar, the number one person at Hamas, the man who was the architect of the October 7th massacre, has been killed by Israeli Defense Forces. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke on this. Here's a little part of what he had to say.
Yahya Sinwar prepared his last-minute preparations for the massacre of the 7th of October. I'm standing here today to tell you that he has been killed. He who killed and caused the worst massacre ever since the Holocaust. He was killed by our soldiers, our heroic soldiers. And we have finished our accounts with him, but the mission ahead of us has not been completed.
Part of the address by Benjamin Netanyahu after that. So let's talk about this, not in the sense of where this goes, because I don't think anybody really has a good idea. Hopefully, this spurs the hostages' release. And I know you sent out a tweet earlier today, basically expressing that. We hope it leads to a ceasefire. Mm-hmm. No one knows for sure, but at least there's reason for hope. Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, I agree with Netanyahu that he orchestrated the terrorist attack on October 7th. And the only, impact that he was trying to have was the death of Israel and also the pain and suffering of Israeli people and innocent Palestinian lives. And that's what I said in my statement. His legacy of terror needs to be condemned here at home, but also unequivocally also around the world.
And we're starting to see that, by the way. There's a text from Emmanuel Macron doing exactly the same thing. We're going to see more of that.
Yeah, and we need to. We really hope this will help to bring the hostages back home. And we hope that eventually we get to a ceasefire and that we can, make sure that basically the violence stops and that we bring back the Middle East and Israel to a place of peace and security. And that's what I wish from the bottom of my heart, and I know many Canadians as well.
So, to be honest, we have to talk a little bit about reaction from what's gone on up until now. Tom Mulcair came out the other day and said, look, I spoke to Melanie Joly, and he was a little taken aback by what you had said with respect to policy. Because a lot of people think the Canadian government has kind of played both sides against the middle here. You have a party like the Conservatives who've come out staunchly for Israel, yet the Liberals have tried to play it safe, right? For Israel, yes, they have a right to defend themselves, but also, and he quoted you as saying, what you have to do is look at my demographics. So you talked about your riding. Explain what you meant by that, because I know you've taken a lot of heat for this.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I don't think that people in Huntsic-Cartierville are no different from everyday Canadians. And I really think that, some of the Jewish community is not happy with myself and also with the government. But I must say, some of the Muslim community as well. And at the end of the day, this is just a lose-lose situation. Yeah. There's no gain out of it. It's only pain and suffering. And so I've been trying to be very principled. And the three principles that we've been following is first, Israel's security and long-term security. And of course, right to exist and defend itself. And the second one, which has been difficult as the conflict has been in evolution, is the protection of civilians, because Canada has had that for its foreign policy for decades now. And the third one is a two-state solution, making sure that eventually we can bring back peace and stability through the fact that Israelis can live side by side in peace and security next to Palestinian people. And so that has been our way forward. And now, what is really sad to see, and I know that many friends from the Jewish community have talked to me about it, is the fact that there's a rise of anti-Semitism because of what's going on in the Middle East. And that's unacceptable. And, I personally and my entire government will never stand for that, because it's unfair. it's unjust for people here at home to be victim of intimidation, of discrimination because of their own culture and religion. And we're proud of having a beautiful Jewish community across the country. And also, we're proud of being a multicultural country. And so we need to make sure that people here feel safe. And that's why also we called Samidun a terrorist organization. We listed it 2 days ago, and we wanted to do it at the same time as the U.S. to send a clear message, and that's what we did.
Some people will say it's well and good to hear you say this now, but the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister in the lead perhaps on this has not done enough. You're talking about anti-Semitism now, has not done enough in the past to deal with this, to point it out repeatedly. Is that fair?
Well, I think we can always do a better job. I think that we could have been clearer. I agree. As foreign minister also, I see that it is an issue around the world. And so lots of countries are dealing with this. At the same time, I think it's a shared responsibility with the municipality, with the campuses, and also with the provinces. And we have, a good spokesperson, which is Anthony Housefather, who has been appointed to deal with this. Anthony and I don't see eye to eye on everything, but we're colleagues that respect each other and actually like each other a lot. We're neighbors in terms of even writing. And I think that every time, and Erwin Cutler and I had many conversations about this, and I saw him 2 weeks ago, and he has been saying that for many times. Every time democracy is at stake, there's a rise of anti-Semitism, and we see the rise of populism also across the country. So we need to be able to send a clear message, and at the same time, I really hope by bringing back peace and stability to the Middle East, because I don't think talking about peace should be a taboo, by the way, it will calm things down here at home. But there's definitely work to be done.
The other day, and we talked about this at the time in the House of Commons, Pierre Poilievre got up and basically called you, and I'm going to try to paraphrase this, a Hamas supporter because you hadn't said anything or spoken out against demonstrations. I know that made you very angry at the time. Was that unfair? And why was it unfair?
Well, first, it's a lie. Second, it's polarizing. I asked him to apologize. He was barred from being able to speak in the House of Commons for a day.
Did he apologize later or not?
No, of course not, because it's Pierre Poilievre. It's all about him. He's trying to fake, bad populism that he's seeing across the world. We're at a time where we need to bring people together. There is anxiety in many communities. Times are tough. And I think, Aaron, and maybe I'm old-fashioned on this, but I think that politicians have a moral duty to bring people together. And that's been at the core of my political involvement since I ran to become mayor. And that, at the time, that's how we got to know each other. And I still believe in it. And so that's why I've been also talking to many communities that are affected by conflicts all around the world. And I'll continue to do that. It's not an easy job sometimes.
Yeah, these problems, when we talk about anti-Semitism, the situation in the Middle East, and I'll move off this in a minute, you get to travel around the world, so you've met with people around the world.
Of course.
I think sometimes we think we live in a bit of a vacuum here. We don't. This is a problem everywhere, everyone you've talked to.
It's a problem everywhere, and not only is it a problem everywhere, I must say, sometimes G7 countries and Arab countries on the future of the Middle East agree more. Diplomats together, we agree more than the parties.
Yeah.
And, there's been this deal about Saudi Arabia respecting, recognizing finally Israel, along with Gulf states, part of the Abraham Accords, and therefore creating an alliance against Iran and its proxies. And that was on the table just before October 7. That's exactly what Hamas and Sinwar were trying to go against. And so I think we can continue to work on that deal because I fundamentally think that's at the core of Israel's security. But I think also what Saudi Arabia is putting on the table, and many G7 countries are putting on the table now, which was different at the time, is the recognition of a Palestinian state. Because I really think that the right to self-determination of Palestinian people is something that we need to reckon, and we need to make sure that Hamas is not part, or Hezbollah is not part of any form of future governance of Gaza and the West Bank. And at the same time, I think that we need to work with people that are in good faith. And I believe in the power of good people from the Israeli side and good people from the Palestinian side, because I believe in humankind and I think it's possible. And I think Canada has been in favor of that position since the 90s, since the Oslo Accords, and I'll continue to defend that legacy.
The end of your statement today that you issued after the news about Sinwar's death says, Hamas must immediately release hostages, lay down its arms, and have no role in the future governance of Gaza. A ceasefire must be secured. Lasting peace must be achieved in the Middle East. That's a pretty hopeful message. You actually think that after what happened today, we're closer to this than we were 24 hours ago?
So. Aaron, I really hope so. And not only do I hope so, I've been saying that for now months. I've had many conversations and sometimes difficult conversation with Israeli members of cabinet, maybe the foreign minister, which I got the news from the Israeli foreign minister of Sinwar's death before it made the news internationally, because he contacted a couple of us, which are foreign ministers. I was in contact with Ron Dermer recently, which is, a very important strategic minister of the Netanyahu government. We don't always agree. We sometimes scream at each other. But at the same time, it is important that diplomacy happens. And I don't talk to Hamas. I don't talk to Hezbollah. We don't talk to Iran. Canada sees the Iranian regime as a terrorist state. And we see also Hezbollah and Hamas as terrorist organizations. What I do, though, is I talk to Arab countries that speak to these folks. And we are in contact also with the Palestinian Authority, because they've been the ones that the G7 countries have been in contact with, and that we recognize their legitimacy. Well, we know that, to be frank, they're not a perfect entity. And so that's my job as a diplomat, is to talk to people to make sure that eventually we can get to as I said, peace and stability. But also, why is it so important, Aaron, is we can't have the conflict escalate in the region, because we can't have an international war happen.
It's a powder keg. There's no question.
And we know Iran is close to Russia, providing weapons to Russia and Ukraine. We know that there's been connection to China. And that's where Canada's national interest becomes really at stake.
Because you don't want to miss a thing. Montreal Now on CJAD 800.
Hello, welcome back. We're just chatting off air here. So let me get back to a couple of stories that are actually in the news this week. One of them, we had the Prime Minister testifying at the foreign interference hearings.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a bombshell yesterday when he just basically said, you know what, I've seen the information. There are Conservatives either elected or past or present. That's turned into a bit of a fencing match back and forth. I don't want to necessarily talk about that, but people are wondering, first of all, and you can't answer for Pierre Poilievre, why he didn't get security clearance. That's going to be an issue that gets
No, that's a real
about.
question, Aaron.
Yeah.
So why? If you believe in basically the fact that you have intel services that provide you with information, why would you think it only happens in one party? Of course, there can be politicians that are, victims of foreign interference in all parties.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't you take the briefing? Why wouldn't you get your security?
Well, what's his answer is, if I took the briefing, then I wouldn't be able to comment on this publicly.
That's not true.
Okay.
Singh has been commenting. He's took the security briefing.
Yeah.
So then the question is, who is he trying to protect? And why is that? And that's a fundamental question that Canadians need to be able to have answers.
Well, that's the latest, is tell us who these names are. Tell us who these people are. Is that fair? Are we going to find out?
Because not only that, you need to take disciplinary measures against these folks. And so why would you accept not having the information? Well, we're saying to you, get the briefing, and of course, the information will be provided.
Okay. Let me talk about the other big story this week, which kind of came out of nowhere. Canada expelling 6 Indian diplomats, and then, of course, the India doing the same as far as Canadian diplomats are concerned. What I've been seeing, hearing, reading, the fact that this could have been handled better. Now you have other countries trying to convince India to actually talk to Canada and understand what's going on. Why was this just out of nowhere The prime minister got up one day and said, hey, we're doing this. No one had a clue this was happening.
Well, first, so the prime minister took his decision a year ago because, of course, it was a major breach of not only Canada's sovereignty, but also it was putting people's lives at risk. And, you know, just to go back, we get the information, the intel, that India and Indian agents were linked to the killing of a Canadian on Canadian soil. That has never happened in our history. We've never seen that. That level of not only transnational repression, but fundamentally killing. We've seen Russia doing that in certain European countries. We never saw that in Canada. So at the time, as foreign minister, what I decided to do was to make sure that there would be three principles, because as you can see, I'm trying to chatter, you know, to be able to navigate in difficult waters. The first one is to seek the truth. I think Canadians want that. Second is to protect them, so protect Canadians. And thirdly, we need to defend our sovereignty. So meanwhile, the RCMP did its entire investigation. 4 charges were laid against folks in BC. And what the RCMP was, realizing is that the threats, the intimidation, even the extortion, and even potentially homicides were being committed by Indian Indian agents linked also to Indian diplomats here in Canada. And the RCMP said, well, this is such a threat that we need to make it public because we have a duty to protect folks.
Yet when it went public, India said, don't bother us, we're not interested, and off you go.
But
And
that's terrible.
Sure.
And so that's why we needed to stand clearly. And I know, I don't know if you'll ask me that question, but I've been getting that question is why is the U.S. and the Canada not
working together?
Well, we are working together, but not necessarily approaching things the same way.
Okay.
And I think there are 3 differences, and it's important for folks listening to us right now to understand. The first one is in Canada, there's been a murder. Somebody was killed, which didn't happen in the U.S. Second, what we saw, it was sitting diplomats that were actually committing these,
These acts, yeah.
Yeah, exacts. And thirdly, from the moment the Prime Minister stood up in Parliament a year ago and denounced India, actually the violence increased. The threats increased, which is mind-boggling when you think about it. And so that is why it is very different from the U.S., and that is why the RCMP had to come out.
Okay.
And since then, I've been in contact with the UK Foreign Secretary. I've been in contact with the White House. I've been in contact also with the Australian Foreign Minister. And
they're offering to try to make this, to take it to the next step?
Well, they've been
to get
supporting,
India to pay attention?
Well, yes, and they've been supporting us also
Okay.
because, they support our judicial and police, judicial system, legal system, and our police forces. But not only that, they want to know what is happening in Canada because this is, may well be happening
Sure.
in their own country.
Okay. We'll leave that. I'm going to run out of time, and I want to get to
Yeah,
talk about this.
okay.
We had 4 members of the Liberal caucus all announced today. They're not going to be running in 2026. The bigger story has been this, I don't know what you want to call it, palace revolt, mutiny against Justin Trudeau. I know you have a caucus meeting next Wednesday. Your name in the Pierre Poilievre issue in the House, he actually, when he called you about a Hamas support or whatever, he said you're more concerned with your leadership race. So, I kind of have to ask the question. People are wondering what happens when Justin Trudeau does decide to walk away. We've heard Mark Carney's name mentioned. We've heard, Chrystia Freeland's name mentioned. Now we've heard your name mentioned. Is that something you're considering?
Well, I'm always concerned when somebody quotes Pierre Poilievre. And I'm just saying. But what I can tell you, though, is the PM, Justin Trudeau can count on my loyalty. And at the same time, I know there's been a lot of conversations, and I know times are tough for my party and for our government. We've been 9 years in power, and there is fatigue. And I'm seeing it across the world. Incumbent governments are in tough places because people are anxious and mad. So we'll have that conversation amongst ourselves because I believe that, a caucus should be a safe space where 160 people. That's a lot of people. I look at your newsroom. There's guys, maybe 10 max. Do times 16. That's a lot of people.
I get it.
And we'll have a discussion. Yeah.
Best guess, does Justin Trudeau lead the Liberal Party into the next election or not?
Well, it's his choice, and he said that he would be committed to doing so. So I'll respect that.
We'll leave it at that. I thank you so much coming in. It's great to see you.